Okay, we're here to talk about superannuation. As you may be aware, from 1 July 2016, there's a new licensing requirement that's in place in order for accountants to give advice in relation to setting out self-managed super funds. In effect, what this actually means is that it will be a lot more expensive to set up a self-managed fund, as accountants will be required to actually provide written advice in relation to setting up a super fund. So, as a consequence of all this, what we should really revisit before 30 June 2016 is what are the benefits of setting up your self-managed super fund? So Don, what are one of the reasons would you believe would be a reason to set up a self-managed super fund?
Mark, in my experience, it's largely an issue of control, and that is that for individuals and families wanting to have a real say in what happens with their superannuation fund, who makes the decisions, and I think that in many instances the large corporate funds really aren't giving what individuals are wanting, and that is total flexibility in terms of investment assets such as property or international equities. And so that's driving, I think, the push for self-managed superannuation funds, which has really been the enormous growth in the sector over the last 3 or 4 years, and don't see that abating in any shape or form.
Oh, that's correct. So in relation to, you did mention control before, and that's one of the key words that you did mention. So what does control actually encompass? Is that in relation to investment choices, for example?
Yes, it is. A lot of the media has been drawn on the fact that self-managed superannuation funds can purchase property, and that remains a valid alternative for trustees. But I think that there's a whole host of other investments that are proving to be more and more attractive to an increasing number of individuals.
Okay, so I suppose we'll sort of move along to estate planning and succession planning. Would you actually recommend putting in children into the self-managed fund given the budget changes recently?
We've already seen, I think, a reasonable move of considering the self-managed superannuation fund as a family fund, and so the direct answer to the question is have seen a number of instances where mum and dad have looked at including children as part of the fund, part of, if you like, an overall estate planning directive.
Oh, that's right. So in relation to setting up a self-managed super fund and the ongoing cost of having one of those funds, how does it compare, say, to a retail fund?
It's a long question, but I'll try and cut it extremely short for you. For small account balances, it's probably true that a self-managed super fund is probably an expensive way of going. The rough rule of thumb is that if you have assets that exceed $200,000, then the further in excess of that amount, then effectively the cheaper and cheaper that a self-managed superannuation fund is. And really, if someone has assets, say of $500,000 on a cost basis, rather than the issue of control, a self-managed super fund is an extremely attractive alternative.
Oh, definitely, and I totally agree with you. So in relation, say, in situations where retail funds, a lot of people have life insurance through retail funds. And in my experience, it's quite difficult to receive those life insurance proceeds or TPD or trauma because all these conditions of release have to be met. How does that compare with those insurances that are held in a self-managed fund in terms of the efficiency of getting those money out on one of those tragic events?
Well, a self-managed superannuation fund would affect death and disablement cover on behalf of the members. The same rules or superannuation rules that govern, if you like, industry funds or corporate funds apply to a self-managed superannuation fund, but there's a lot more room to be innovative and again, so not only from the investment point of view, but I would argue from an insurance point of view, there's a lot of compelling reasons to adopt the self-managed superannuation fund approach. Now, I'm not saying that is the only approach and the best approach in all instances, but I would certainly encourage people to revisit some of the outstanding reasons for having a self-managed super fund.
Oh, exactly. One of the reasons that I see which is beneficial in having a self-managed fund, particularly if you're in business, is that if you own your business premises outside of superannuation, there's a lot of tax advantages to be had to actually having that property inside of superannuation, Would you agree with that?
In terms of capital gains tax, there are enormous advantages for using the self-managed superannuation fund approach. And we certainly have a number of clients that adopt that strategy, most important.
Oh, definitely. What I see in relation to that particular strategy is that if you're in a highest marginal tax bracket outside of superannuation, and say your fund is in pension mode, the rent that you're paying, one, you keep it to yourself, two, you're building up your super, and three, the effective tax rate on that money going into super as rent is 0%. So it is a massive tax saving for you.
I effectively describe the self-managed superannuation fund, certainly in pension mode, as effectively being a tax-exempt entity. That is, that it's paying no income tax, it's paying no capital gains tax, and depending on the age of the individual, they're not paying any tax on withdrawal. So there is no other category of entity that can provide the massive advantages that a self-managed superannuation fund can do.
That's right. And one final question before we wrap up.
Yeah.
In relation to the proposed budget changes that were announced in the federal budget, is there any reason in relation to those changes to not set up a self-managed super fund that you can see?
None whatsoever. And in fact, I would actually argue that there's more advantages for setting up a self-managed superannuation fund. It is a lot easier. Whilst the superannuation legislation rules apply universally, having your own self-managed superannuation fund and receiving professional advice can make sure that you're taking advantage of every opportunity that exists. And I would argue that dealing with an institution in Collins Street or wherever simply doesn't afford the same degree of flexibility. And it's important that every client take advantage of the taxation concessions that are out there. And Wilson Patiras know them very, very well. So our role is to maximise the advantages that are afforded under tax legislation. That's our mandate.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Thanks for your time.
That's all right.
No worries.
Good to be here.